Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As we welcome you this evening once again to Wednesday nights with myself, Inayet Wadee, and once again unpacking interesting panel discussions, but more importantly, to highlight some of the critical issues that we, as our listeners and viewers, as we welcome you to the airwaves of Salam Media this evening, to be thinking about, and more importantly, being able to action some of the issues that we discuss over and over again. And the one issue we want to talk about tonight is Kashmir. Now, there are various dimensions to the discussion on Kashmir. We will be unpacking the book Nelson Mandela on Kashmir, and this is a book that was written, authored by Salman Khan with the South African Kashmiri Action Group. He is the founder of the organization, but also at the same time, we have got Yousha, who is an attorney and a member of the Muslim Lawyers Association. Now, there are a number of reasons why we are having this discussion. There are various dimensions that we need to take. And looking at Kashmir, we know Kashmir is even an older occupation than Palestine, and not receiving as much attention as it should, because Palestine, all the attention from right across the entire world. But sadly, whatever is taking place in Kashmir is taking place in Palestine. In fact, these two occupations actually mirror each other in more ways than one. And both of them are victims of two brutal ideologies, two racist ideologies, supremacist ideologies, Hindutva and Zionism, twins in many ways and in more ways than one. Now, what we're going to be doing this evening is, apart from unpacking the book on Nelson Mandela and his views on Kashmir, there are a number of issues that we need to talk about. Recently, we've had the BRICS Summit, the whole issue surrounding Narendra Modi. Now, we know about the Modi files and obviously the calls for arresting Modi for war crimes and crimes against humanity. And to date, Modi has virtually killed thousands of people through his extremist BJP party and also the RSS in India. And all of that still continuing, and at the same time, the crimes against humanity against the people of Kashmir. So that is an issue that we will be focusing on, but also looking at South Africa, because what the book talks about is South African foreign policy as far as Kashmir is concerned. And was Modi being allowed in the country, and he was granted diplomatic immunity against any arrest and any prosecution. But we know that when he left this country, he left like a thief in the middle of the night. So a lot that we're going to be talking about this evening, and also taking a look at South Africa and its association with India. And now that we've seen this BRICS, we've seen this expanded BRICS as well, where large parts of the Arab world will be part of the BRICS, the BRICS family. Now, before we get to our two guests, there was an interesting video clip that was doing its round, and we're talking about Shahid Bolton out from the United States of America. And we want to play out this clip to give you some context as to how this discussion is actually going to be taking this evening. So take a listen to this clip, and when we get back after that, we will welcome our two guests, Salman Khan and Yousha.
The Hindutva ideology is a demented, delusional, psychotic manifesto for ethnic cleansing. Prime Minister Modi has been a hate-mongering demagogue his entire career, and he has at least 20 years of Muslim blood on his hands. We have heard outrageous anti-Muslim fanaticism expressed at the highest levels of the Indian government. They've created a climate in India of intimidation and terror for Muslims in India that resembles the American South after Reconstruction, when lynchings and brutality were cultural norms. And obviously their philosophy, this Hindutva philosophy, is not unlike the tone of the savage Buddhist monks in Myanmar who dehumanized the Rohingya Muslims in Rakhine province and have been leading an ongoing genocide in that country. And obviously it's very close and akin to Nazism and Zionism and the ideology of people like Slobodan Milosevic. What I would like to say about Hindutva is that any anti-Muslim ideology, any ideology that includes any element of anti-Muslim hatred, a genocidal ambition to purge Muslims out of existence. This is a suicidal ideology. This is like thinking that you can melt a glacier with a cigarette lighter. In our lifetime, India is going to have the largest Muslim population in the world. India is part of BRICS, and BRICS just doubled in size last week, adding 5 Muslim countries. And as it grows, BRICS is very likely to become a de facto Muslim political and economic bloc. There is no future in which enmity towards the Muslims makes any logical or practical sense for any nation. India is the only BRICS country that has a negative trade balance. They have a trade deficit that runs on average, I think, around $20 billion every month. Without remittances from Indians overseas, the Indian economy would cave in. The rupee would plummet into oblivion. Inflation would skyrocket. Unemployment would spread like wildfire, and investment inside of India would come to a grinding halt. And the bulk of those overseas remittances are coming from where? They're coming from Indians working in the GCC countries, in the UAE, in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, and so on. The Indian economy is held together by the hospitality of Muslim countries who let Indians work there and who let them send their money back home. Those money transfers don't have to be allowed to happen. There are regulatory measures that the Gulf states could take to restrict the transfer of capital out of their countries. They could do that. Half of the top 6 countries that India imports goods from are Muslim countries. Modi needs to remember that his country is completely dependent, not partially dependent, completely dependent on friendly relations with the Muslim world. Good relations with the Muslims, good ties with the Muslim world is a recipe for success and prosperity. You can't hate the Muslims and love yourself at the same time, because it's self-destructive. The Ummah is a glacier, and you can only chart your course around it, not through it. If you reconcile yourself with the Muslims now, you'll be ahead of the curve. As I've talked about many times, the global economy is shifting to the global south, and the single largest cohesive population in the global south is the Muslims. The nations in the global south that possess the most important raw materials, from oil to gas to gold to rare earths, and have the most robust demographics are the Muslim nations. There's no getting around the fact that the second half of the 21st century is going to be characterized by Muslim ascendancy. It's pointless to fight it. It's self-destructive to fight it. India already is, and is going to become even more integrated into global Muslim economies. Hostility towards the Muslims doesn't make any sense. And if Modi doesn't change, then India is going to have to change Modi, because there's no future in this fanaticism. India is never going to be a Hindu-only country, and India's economy is never going to be able to survive without being underwritten by the Muslims. Even your most famous tourist attraction is the Taj Mahal, a Muslim achievement. It's self-humiliation to hate Muslims, for anyone, but especially for Indians. And if you think that there's nothing that Muslims worldwide could do to pressure you, to pressure India, then you're delusional. Like I said, money transfers could be halted. Exports could be halted. 2 billion Muslims around the world could lobby trade organizations, trade commissions, chambers of commerce, lobby them to denounce the BJP. Indian shops and businesses in every Muslim country could be boycotted, and boycotted by Muslims and people who care about justice, even in the West, all around the world. The entire Indian diaspora could be lobbied to denounce Hindutva and the BJP. The UAE and Qatar and Saudi Arabia can pump money from their sovereign wealth funds into the political opposition in India, while overnight the entire infrastructure that keeps the BJP afloat could be disabled. We have the ability to impose catastrophic organ failure on the entire political establishment of India. And the reason why we're not doing that isn't because we can't. It isn't because we don't know how. And it isn't because we don't have the will to do it. It's because we are a peaceful and compassionate and kind-hearted people, and we don't like having to play hardball. We don't like being combative and confrontational. And we want you to do the right thing because it is the right thing, not because we forced you to do it. We want to get along. Muslims have a natural reflex towards de-escalation, towards mediation, arbitration, negotiation. We approach conflict calmly with the intent to calm it down. We don't like to act forcefully if it can be avoided, but when it can't be avoided, we have the ability to do the needful. And India, maybe more than any other country in the world, would be helpless against worldwide collective Muslim action. No, India has no bargaining position. We know it and they know it. Without us, India would either become a Western colony again or a Chinese colony. That's a fact. Now, movements like Hindutva and parties like the BJP are doomed. It's just a question of how much damage they're going to be able to do to their country before they inevitably fall apart.
Well, that was the voice of Shahid Bolton out of the United States of America. And there's so much that he has said, and I'm sure a lot is going to come up in the discussion that we are going to be having with Salman Khan and Yousha. And we're going to welcome both of them onto my screen right now. Salman Khan, who is the author of the book Nelson Mandela on Kashmir, and also a director of the South African Kashmir Action Group. Yousha Tayub, attorney and member of the Muslim Lawyers Association. Yousha, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for the opportunity, inshallah.
Yes, Jazakallah khairan so much, and to you as well, Salman Khan. Assalamu alaikum to you, my brother.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to you and to Yousha Bhai, as well as all the beautiful listeners of your radio station.
Yes, Yousha, just to start off with you, and obviously, you listened to what Shahid Bolton had to say, and there's just so much to actually unpack in what he had to say, and why this discussion that we are having, and also why the book, Nelson Mandela on Kashmir, the Kashmir QUAGMIRE, South Africa's foreign policy, is very, very important in the context of what Shahid Bolton has been saying.
Gee, Inayet, so, I haven't read the book, I must be honest. But ours is a legal angle in terms of the Rome Statute. You mentioned a few matters in your introduction that were pertinent in regard to these policies that are being applied. And now BRICS seeks to admit even more partners who have Muslim blood on their hands. The true reality of all of this is that we suffered through apartheid. The members of our current government championed human rights causes, and everybody looks to South Africa because of this rainbow nation liberation that we were able to achieve. And yet we see our government hosting people like Modi, who certainly has blood on his hands. In fact, when one looks at the Rome Statute and you look at the annexures in regard to the definition of war crimes and crimes against humanity, it is as though these people went and looked at the act and committed every conceivable act that is defined in that act as war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. Shaheen talks about genocide as well. It's been a hurdle, difficult to reach, but we no doubt seeing it in regard to what they're doing. So by and large, I don't know that his answers to all of it are correct. Whether an economic boycott or that will work, but it certainly seems from the news we have that there's a concerted campaign, and the difficulty with all of this is that all of these BRICS members have Muslim blood on their hands, and I can't see the functionality of it, considering our history and how we welcome these people. So I don't know how less to put it, but I mean, insofar as apartheid was concerned, insofar as Zionism is concerned, insofar as Hindutva is concerned, the Russians are persecuting Muslims in Syria, and we've also got a docket against Putin, but the ICC step up against us in issuing their warrant very quickly. Ours are all taking time. We have one against Sisi, we have one against members of the Knesset and Israel, we have one against Jinping. So we've got all these dockets and we've got all the evidence. And like I said in previous interviews, it seems like they have looked at the schedules to the Act and they've done everything that the Act requires them to do as war crimes. And we've presented to our NDPP the law, the Rome Statute, and we've identified these crimes. In fact, last week I was hosted at a commemoration for the Rabah event, and I saw video footage of how the Rabah Square was surrounded on all 5 sides with a clear intent to do harm and kill. Kashmir, similarly, is at any given time, I'm advised by my witness who traveled to South Africa for the matter, at any given time is surrounded by 1 million Indian soldiers and horrific other crimes. So, yeah, I mean, Shaheen's right. And, I agree with him to some extent, but not on everything. But I don't know how an economic boycott is going to save anything or anyone. It may have its effects, but I think it's time for the Ummah to wake up, because there's a concerted attack on us.
Definitely. And also, Salman, that, for a long time, you've been fighting a battle. At times, it's been a lone battle for a very, very long time on the whole Kashmir issue. And this is the reason that prompted you to write this book. And I know, apart from just being a battle, the key issue here is the lack of information on Kashmir. And the reason for this is it's not that there is a lack of information. We don't talk about Kashmir. We don't give Kashmir the attention that it actually needs. And this is the reason why we see this. And I mean, Yousha is talking about an economic boycott, but we know the BDS is a form of a boycott. It's an economic boycott against Israel. And we cannot, obviously, looking at governments. Yousha speaks about governments that have got blood on their hands, but this is the same thing with Palestine as well. They've got it's the world. It is the Ummah. It is those that are seeking justice for Palestine that are at the forefront of the BDS movement. And I'm sure, looking at Kashmir, to embrace Kashmir in this type of movement wouldn't be a problem.
You're 100% right. I mean, look at the global power of the humanity. I mean, they can move the world. And unfortunately, if you look at it, how the media control the perception of the people, when there was a few girls was abducted, and Michelle Obama went to free them. And when, Yusuf Zai Malala was shot allegedly by the Taliban, she was given a Nobel Prize. But on the same time, that you have United Nations completely immovable and completely insensitive toward the plight or the rights of my sisters in Kashmir and my children, as well as my people in Kashmir. So yes, the humanity at large have a power to do so. Not only it is an issue of Muslims, but it is an issue of a humanity.
Definitely, yes. And just to bring Yousha back into the discussion, Yousha, just the point that I had made to Salman in terms of the Palestinian cause, how that has been embraced by humanity, by justice-seeking activists right across the entire world. And to an extent, even if you look at our own government, they've made statements on Palestine, but we see very little as far as Kashmir is concerned. And just trying to understand as to why Kashmir is not given the attention that it should.
Yeah, look, I can't explain it, but I think Salman makes an important point in regard to what the media does and doesn't do. But even in Palestine, we get these clips that are sent by people within, and you have to be looking at alternative media sources in order to get real information. So it's not your CNNs or BBCs or to some extent RT as well, that are flighting these. And so you have to look at people like Bilal Abdul Karim, giving you stuff out of Syria and showing you real stuff. Again, I mean, everywhere else, we can talk about so many more. The Rohingya, completely blocked, nothing going on. The Chinese Uyghurs, we're getting no news unless you go to alternative sources. For what it's worth, I mean, Palestine has been highlighted as one of those causes, but I think that's the media narrative that they want, and so it's important for us to get word out there, because I don't know about you, I don't know about your listeners, but I mean, I'm starting to find to have great difficulty in finding a country that is not persecuting Muslims in one way or the other, whether they're banning hijabs or burning Qurans or whatever. There's just not a country in the world that I can find that is not persecuting our brothers and sisters. And like I said earlier, there seems to be a really concerted campaign, and we're getting information. But the point also of it is that there are reporters on the ground, people who are using their cell phones, who are being able to produce this. And if we can get it into mainstream media, then great. But I think your viewership, listenership needs to understand that there is a persecution, and media are not going to show you this because it's not in their interest to do so.
Yes, Salman, now I know you've been fighting a battle in also trying to reach out to government, to reach out to whoever you could, reach out to individuals, reach out to organizations to embrace the Kashmiri cause. And coming to your book now, unpacking the book, Nelson Mandela on Kashmir. Now, everybody is aware of Nelson Mandela, his statement on Palestine, where he says, South Africa cannot be free if Palestine is not free. And we know that Nelson Mandela had his views on Kashmir. And in your book, you actually make that comment in your book in terms of what Nelson Mandela had actually thought about Kashmir and reaching out to government. And also, we will touch on a little later on South Africa, the foreign policy position, because I know you've tried to reach out to government as well, where they need to take a standpoint and take a position. Let's go to the book. Let's take a step back. What motivated you? What prompted you to write this book? And what actually went into writing this book?
Good. Okay. Thank you, Inayet Wadee. I mean, Yousha Bhai, and Firoz Boda, Iqbal Jasad, Shabna Miyat, Zinat Adam are the few people, those who been a inspiration behind me, named Juna as well. Those who given me a meaning or a purpose, that there was a fire in my house and not many people knowing about it, and still do not know about the Kashmir. And my book is the hard work and hard labor of my 27 year of the activism, serving the chapter of Kashmir in South Africa. And of course, 3-4 years ago, I met Professor Susie Graham. She looked at my article, she looked at my work. She said, have you ever thought of coming and doing some sort of academic work? And I said, no. So she said, why don't you register for the PhD or MA, at least to get into the academic writing? And for me, it was something I never considered. But then I think, no, it could be a good idea. So, you got a lot of material, a lot of research. Let's do it. So I registered toward my MA and on the way to do the PhD. And while I was doing my dissertation, then, of course, the struggle was definitely to do adjustment from writing as a freelance writer, articles on Kashmir and talking about Kashmir, doing interviews on Kashmir, then to become writing as like an academic writing, research writer was a difficult transition. But many things went into that. And of course, the book is all about my research, the dissertation of the MA in politics from the University of Johannesburg. But in digging deep into the history, looking at, because your dissertation need to be based on certain questions, and my 3 questions was, one was, of course, it was supervised by my professor, is like, what is the reason that Kashmir issue is still unresolved after 76 years? And then what is the role South Africa has played so far, and vis-a-vis to the foreign policy? And third is what South Africa can do at the moment that South Africa was as a president of the United Nations Security Council. what they can do to play a neutral and meaningful role in resolving the matter during their tenure at the United Nations. So the book is definitely dig deep into these three questions, and of course there are 5 chapters dealing with your historical context, then dealing with the instruments and conventions and whatever happened in the last, I would say, 300 years, but more so from the 1947 to the 1990, let's say 2000, and then of course looking at the South African foreign policy, and of course the conclusion. So yes, that is what it is. But when you say what inspired me to write the book, it was always my desire to detoxify the Indian narrative internationally and locally. I mean you heard Yousha saying that so little he heard about it, about the Kashmir, and many people will still tell you that they do not know much about the Kashmir. Then we look at it, the who's actually the fault it is. So I look at it historically when I was doing my research, and I look at the narrative that has been told in the mainstream media, from the pulpit of the mosque, from the normal our activism. It's all Indian narrative. And why it is the Indian narrative? That fortunately, when the Indian National Congress merged into African National Congress in 1956, most of the Indians, those were the Muslims and the Hindus, those who have already the school of thought, come from the school of thought of the Nehru and the India. So India has given them a task to make sure that the real story of Kashmir was not told, and that's the reason the NC, the Luthuli House, when you go and talk, it's a, when you come, you complain about the atrocity, you talk about the injustice, you talk about the human right issue. When we take this issue to our colleagues, which those are the founding member of the ANC, I'm not going to give you the name, they say, no, it is just a propaganda, don't worry about it, it's nothing to worry about it, and you continue your work. Kashmir is not the issue, it's a bilateral issue, do not discuss, because you're going to eventually upset India. And if you look at the preamble in that bio of my book, you have, read it and you have seen it, my book. I start with my dissertation title is Kashmir QUAGMIRE, South African Foreign Policy Position, and that is where the question mark is. But then I changed to the make it more marketable, called Nelson Mandela on Kashmir, and I start my preamble with the Nelson Mandela very important statement, and that was made in 8th of July 1998 in the non-aligned movement, and he stood up in front of the hall full of the presidents and the prime minister, including the Indian and Pakistani, and he said the issue of Kashmir concerned him and concerned rest of us, and we should lend our hand and all the strength to resolve this matter with the United Nations resolution, and according to the United Nations resolution 47 of 1948, which asks for the free and fair plebiscite. On that note, Indian university, those who have given Nelson Mandela honorary doctorate, wanted to revoke his doctorate, and the foreign minister and our ambassador was called to the office and asked that Nelson Mandela has actually, there was complaint that Nelson Mandela has betrayed our loyalty, and the Kashmir issues are bilateral, and Kashmir is our land. It's a integral part of of India, and Nelson Mandela should not have heard our feeling, our sentiment. And but Nelson Mandela never apologized, never revoked his statement, and he continued. And that's what my preamble of the book, which I continue to take it onto from chapter to chapter and asking the question. And yeah, that is the basis of my book.
Jazakallah for that, Salman, and we will go through some of these chapters and some of the critical issues that you have raised. Now, Yousha, there's so many issues that Salman has actually spoken about. The question of Nelson Mandela, his system, and just looking and also looking at talking about the Indian narrative and the real story of Kashmir, which has been told by people like Salman, but this story is not told by the mainstream media, and you may, as you mentioned, alternative sources of media again. But looking at the one issue in terms of adopting a neutral position, which Salman speaks about, can any peace-loving country, any country like South Africa, for example, having come from this brutal system of apartheid, having come through from the struggle, can a country like South Africa actually adopt a neutral position?
Inayet, I think Salman is directing this to where this discussion really needs to go for us, because every time we've lodged a docket, we keep being told about this word called political will. Neutrality for me is a difficult position because it's right and wrong, and that's what we are taught as Muslims. Something is either halal or it's haram. Something is right or it's wrong, prohibited or. And this question of political will has arisen every time. I don't want to detract from the Kashmir issue, but one of the first dockets that we ever lodged was the Gaza docket arising out of caste led in 2008 and 2009. And at that time, the NDPP was still fully loaded with white advocates. And the most senior advocate in that meeting, after we had done our presentation, said to us, "And what about prosecuting Hamas for war crimes?" And the answer was beautiful, because we said to him, if you have the evidence, then do so, but please do so on the same standard that we're requesting you to do in regard to Israel. So if you have the evidence that Hamas has committed war crimes or crimes against humanity, and you apply the same standard, we would have no objection to a prosecution of Hamas as much as we were requesting it of the Israeli government and whoever was supposed to be traveling here around that time. So it's and then the other thing is that the Rome Statute, I just wanted to correct you, allows for the arrest of a sitting president. It does. There's no diplomatic immunity. You'll remember the saga with Umar al-Bashir, who had to be whisked away. You know what went into keeping Putin away from the last BRICS summit, special delegations. In fact, in the last summit in 2018, Modi had cancelled his visit, and a special ministerial delegation was sent to convince him that no warrant would be issued for his arrest. That's the extent to which they go to. So it's not as neutral as they want it to seem. Also, I mean, there was a lot of hype around the closure of the diplomatic office in Israel by the ANC and having taken a decision. And weeks later, through the assistance of COSATU, we find that ships docking from Israel are being offloaded at Durban port. So there's no neutrality here. They've taken a position, and their position is self-interest. And I just wonder how they would have felt if the entire world took a self-interest position when we were calling upon the international community to bring apartheid to an end. Because I detracted. If you look at the preamble to the Rome Statute, the act in fact starts with the following words, and it says so as follows. It says, "Considering our past and the atrocities that were committed, we commit ourselves to making sure such atrocities don't happen again anywhere in the world, and we're a member of the international community." You give them the evidence, you give them the video footage, you give them the witness statements. They've not adopted a neutral position. It's not a neutral position. They've taken a position of not wanting to act. For whatever reason, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi chose not to come here. The chief mufti of Al-Azhar chose not to come here because of the dockets that we lodged. And those are ongoing investigations, but there's no heart and soul in this investigation. We've got to prod them all the time. So in the current docket, we had delivered. We knew about this visit as early as February this year. We delivered the docket to the police, the special unit of the police, the Hawks, and the NDPP on the 22nd of May. 22nd of May. The conference was scheduled for the 22nd of August. All through June and July, we're begging for a meeting, begging for a meeting, begging for a meeting. We then get a meeting on the 3rd of August. On the 3rd of August meeting, every conceivable hurdle that they wanted to put in our way is put in our way. But shukar, alhamdulillah, we were able to find the witness. We brought him down by the 10th of August. We had the meeting on the 3rd. They said they want an actual witness. We managed to get the witness. We brought him down for the interview on the 10th of August. And the interview with the Hawks was done. Clear evidence of war crimes, crimes against humanity, fits into the act. The conference now happens. We don't get an arrest warrant like they did for Putin because we're not the right color. We're not the right European nation that's being targeted. We just brown and black skinned people who must endure the suffering of the world. It's racist and it's not neutral, Inayet. It's not neutral. They've taken a position, and that position is political will.
Well, definitely. And I'm sure, Salman, in your book, you speak about this lack of political will or the absence of political will. And perhaps if you could just take us, through some of the key issues that you highlight in your book with regards to this lack of political will.
All right. Okay. Before I go there, thank you for asking a very, very good question here. But I'd like to touch on what Yousha Bhai just said about the political will, and they have taken a very obvious position. And that is not the problem. It's a global problem. It's not a localized problem. And I said, and I have been on a record by saying it, and I run the poll on Twitter and Space as well. I said the United Nations need to be restructured, if not dismantled. The reason is being United Nations have a double standard. It's anti-Muslims and it's anti-Africans. And I'll tell you why. When it's come to the persecuting the Muslim leaders, they're very fast. When it's come to prosecuting African leaders, they're very fast. And if you look at it, United Nations serve and protect the Western agenda. And on the payroll, 67% of the United Nations budget come from the United States of America, and United States of America, 80% is the Jewish or Zionist economy. So they will never serve in any agenda or anything that will serve the Muslim purpose or the African. Now, I'll give you one or two small examples before I go to your main question. Is when it's come to Gaddafi uprising of the Tripoli had 7 people was killed only. It was a one session of the United Nations, 17 new resolutions come, and what happened within a few days, the NATO and the allied forces go there, break every rule in the world, and they get rid of him. When it's come to Saddam Hussein, how many people he killed in the Kuwait? There was 11 resolution took within 45 minutes, and they go and turn the whole of the Baghdad into the ruins. Same happened in Afghanistan. When it's come to Umar al-Bashir, it's very fast for them to issue a warrant of arrest. When it's come to the Putin, because it's serving the Western agenda, they're very fast to issue the Putin. But on the same time, when the fascist Modi commit a crime against the humanity and against the Muslim, when the Tony Blair, when the Barack Obama, when the Bush 1 and 2, both of them senior, junior, done a colossal damage to the world, to the Muslims especially, there is no warrant of arrest. So we cannot, we should not, or we cannot continue to rely on United Nations. We need to find a parallel structure. Now, coming back to your question, what is my main findings? There are many findings, but the most astonishing finding that I like to discuss is, beside the foreign policy, is the instrument of taxation. That is the Indian legal, I would say, always been that, there should not be any propaganda, or there shouldn't be any war, or there shouldn't be any uprising, because technically the Maharaja Hari Singh has signed an instrument of taxation. And in my book, I have actually ripped apart that claim so beautifully that my professor was completely shocked to see the evidence that I put it together. It was from the Royal British Museum, the archives, and from the Indian New Delhi Museum. Those now disappeared. That document, if you look in my book pages, I'm sure you have seen it, it is a fraudulent document. And we, as a Kashmiri activist across the world, asking India to bring the document, the original copy of it, so we can actually look. Then we have no claim, because if the Hari Singh has. India said that document, actually the original copy has lost, because I'm sure you read it, and I put into that, there is so many of omissions, they are so deletion, so much. 85,000 kilometer radius land of the 14 million people was done on a fill up the blanks paper, which they call it instrument of taxation, which give them a license to kill, which give them a legal authority over. But now India don't talk about it. The reason is being because India took the matter of Kashmir when there was a civil war breakout from the 27th of October, the civil war breakout. Nehru took the issue to United Nations, hoping that they will be overturned, and there will be some sort of I would say the resolution will come in their favor, and the United Nations listen to the complaint from Pakistan, and then make a very famous resolution. They issued of the resolution 47 of 1948, which says neither the India nor the Pakistan is the rightful owner of the land of Kashmiri people. Kashmir belongs to the Kashmiris. Let it be. India was given a task: remove your forces, pacify the situation, and bring within 3 months a free and fair plebiscite or referendum, and that will decide whether the Kashmiri want to be with India and Pakistan. Nehru accepted it. I documented that script from the United Nations in my book, and until today, that referendum never took place. That's for that Pakistan. So the India and Pakistan gone for a 4 wars, almost a nuclear war in 1999, and the people have lost over 100,000. Kashmiri have lost their lives, and there is a perpetual curfew. There is no human rights suspension. The Yousha Bhai was talking earlier about Geneva Convention, was talking about the many other convent. They are the two famous fundamental human right, I would say, the document. One is, we call it a UDHR, which is a Universal Declaration on a Human Right, and the other one, ICPR, which is International Convention onto the Civil, Political, and Cultural Right. Now, one have 38 article, the other one have 43 article. All the articles, if you read it, 99.99% talking about the basic human right. You have a right to live, you have a right to association, you have a right for self-explanation. Every single right that is written there in the UDHR, which makes the United Nations Human Rights Council Charter, African Charter, Bill of Rights from South Africa, if you take each of the article and look at it, every single article has been violated in the Indian occupied Kashmir. Of course, Palestine as well. But let's talk about the Kashmir. Since 1947, the India have a perpetual curfew or martial law, shoot to kill. The people, the women, during the time when the double lockdown happened, from the time of 5th of August 2019, the women could not get, because you're not allowed to come out, you cannot move around. You was a total curfew, a brute curfew. If a woman see the child is crying and there is no milk in the house, and she put the head out, the police and the armed forces have a right to shoot to kill, not shoot to injured, or not a warning shot. Women was shot dead because they were looking for quenching the thirst of the hungry child, the milk. The kids was buried into the backyard. The father and mother, the elderly people, the sick people was not given a right to get a chronic medication. When the elderly passed away, they were forced to bury the people in their own yard in the house, because they was not allowed to hold the funerals. So every single human right, which is the cornerstone of a United Nations Declaration of a Human Right, has been trampled apart. I know that you have another question, but the next question I want you to ask me about the South African foreign policy. What did I discover about the South African foreign policy on Kashmir?
Well, we definitely will, and I think that actually ties in with what Yousha has obviously been saying in terms of the docket and the call for the arrest for Narendra Modi. But definitely you will get an opportunity to answer that question next, Salman. But Yousha, I just want to come back to the Modi files and the docket. And it is clear that the evidence is there, clear, hard evidence, and convincing evidence from a legal perspective for the arrest of Modi. And perhaps just for the benefit of our viewers and listeners this evening, just to take us through this docket in itself, what is contained in this docket?
Okay, so in essence, it's a complaint. The docket very much so. A lot of South Africans, unfortunately, know about crime and how crime occurs. So from a local point of view, what would happen is, if somebody was unfortunately a victim of a crime, let's just call it a theft, you would have to call on the police. The police would come out, take statements, and photographs of evidence or whatever they would do. They would then open a docket. They would assign a docket number to the matter, and the matter would then be given to an investigating officer, one or more police people. They in turn would do the investigation, and if and when they had sufficient evidence, they would be guided by the prosecutor as to what to do. and hopefully they would find a perpetrator. The perpetrator would then be caught, arrested, taken in for questioning, and somehow hopefully tied to the crime. There would then be a prosecution through a court process, and hopefully after the evidence there would be a conviction and a sentence. What the Rome Statute does is it internationalizes it, because South Africa became a member of the global community post 1994, and this legislation was adopted into South African law in 2002 by way of what we call the implementation of the Rome Statute. And so it internationalizes it, and it simply says that because we were victims of these various atrocities, we want to protect the world against people who may be subjected to it. And so, if there's a war crime, much in the way that you would report a local crime, you find a witness who can testify to the crimes. You provide the statement. The police are obliged to investigate it, open the docket, which has happened with by and large all of our dockets, and then continue with the investigation to get sufficient evidence. And in this regard, we've tendered full cooperation. So where the police have requested more and more witnesses, we've provided it to the best that we can. Video footage, actual witness statements, we've done that to the extent that we've had to obtain statements from witnesses who are overseas. And this has been a huge problem, huge. In Kashmir, in Syria, in China with the Uyghurs, the extent to which the people are terrified to come forward and give their names and addresses because of the repercussions. In fact, the witness who traveled from the United Kingdom for the Modi docket in August indicated to us that he had addressed the UN some time ago, and within weeks, his uncle had disappeared. A nephew of his was imprisoned at the time he came to see us, was in prison for 2 months. So we've had substantial difficulty in getting witness statements, but shukr alhamdulillah, we have got them. We've struggled with the Jinping docket, we've struggled with the Russian docket, but certainly in regard to Kashmir, Palestine, Egypt, we managed to get these statements. So what needs to happen is that the investigator, and to some extent assisted by the prosecution, needs to direct that investigation, gather the required evidence, and start the prosecution. And remember, if you identify an accused who you haven't been able to find, the court authorizes you to issue a warrant. Ultimately, if South Africa, in terms of this act, which it's obliged to do, is set up a court and do the prosecution, if it declines to do so, it must provide written reasons, and it needs to onward transfer it to the ICC. Now, we also know that there's difficulties at the ICC. Again, there were a couple of incidences after 2008 that we re-referred these dockets to the ICC on, because we had delivered one to the ICC in 2008, 2009. We re-referred it, and it was all kept on hold. In fact, there were a number of dockets, and we've also offered to every country in the world that is a signatory to the Rome Statute our dockets. We're more than willing to share it with them if anybody wants to take it. So so the world becomes a substantially smaller place for these war criminals. Only after Palestine applied for its admission to the UN are those dockets that were referred. And alhamdulillah, I think the attack in Al-Aqsa Masjid was about 2019 or 2020. I'm not sure of the dates, forgive me. But they've accepted our docket and that referral. But again, we're 4 years down the line. And, follow up after follow up after follow up. So, this political world is not only national South African. It appears to be an international mindset where this is just not going to happen. I mean, if you look at the speed with which the Putin warrant was issued compared to so many others in the world, it just doesn't make sense. I'm sorry, it's just not making sense here, man. Just not making sense. There's a particular color and there's a particular culture and there's a particular that's protected, and we're not of that protected. So, I don't want to necessarily encourage a jihad, but sometimes Zionism and Hindutva need to be met with jihad, and I don't know how much longer we need to sit back and wait for this to happen. I mean, we have these laws. We're being persecuted. People are being evicted from their homes. They're Muslim. all the conditions are met. I just I don't know. Sometimes I sit back and I say this lawfare, this lawfare, this lawfare. I don't know how much progress we're making in it. I'm not seeing it, and like I say, this issue of political will has hampered us from day one. So much like any other criminal case, you lay a charge, you produce the evidence, and I don't know how much more we can do here. I mean, we've seen the crimes, we've got video footage of the crimes. And I mean, he stands on national podiums and encourages the killing of Muslims. I don't know. I just don't know where the world is at. Completely lost. Completely lost, guys.
Well, definitely, Yousha. In fact, I think, in the absence of lawfare or even lack of political will, we will obviously look at some of the other options. But I just want to get back to Salman in terms of South African foreign policy and in terms of, during the course of writing your book, what have you discovered?
Jazakallah. Before I attempt your question, thank you very much, Inayet Bhai. I'd just like to acknowledge a very important, as much as I can hear my brother Yousha Tayub frustration, I like to acknowledge and command him and Feroz Boda, again, everybody from the Mala, those who stood and give the voice to the voiceless people of Kashmir. On the behalf of 14 million oppressed, my brothers and sisters, thank you very much. And you people have been just, I think I can call it the living Sahabas of our time, including yourself, Inayet Bhai and Iqbal Jasad, and our sisters, Zinat and Shabnam. Your work is exemplary. You are brave. You you take risk regardless of your standing in the society. I know the backlash that we had in 2018 when we opened the case collectively because Sakaj and the Mala was a joint. We had a backlash within our own community. So it's do not underestimate the power that we have done and what the damage that we have done. The Modi come here for 10 days, and when he heard the Yousha Tayyub name and Feroz Boda, Salman Khan running to open up a case, and there is a case, he cut short. Within 2 days, he ran away from here. So the damage has been done. Our work has been done. Sometimes you need to say, Hasbunallah, ni'mal wakil, ni'mal mawla wa ni'mal nasir. Leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah ta'ala is the best of the best, the planner. So inshallah ta'ala, the help will come, and we need to continue to do our best, and inshallah ta'ala, the result will come. Now, coming back to my findings on the foreign policy, when I was doing the research, and one of my, of course, the leading question was the South African foreign policy on Kashmir. There is no such a thing called South African foreign policy on Kashmir. Sadly, it is one of the longest unresolved matter on United Nations Security Council, unresolved. The longest debate took place in the United Nations was in the Guinness Book of Record was on Kashmir. 100,000 people have been killed, 30,000 people in a jail, and many mass grave has been found. Unfortunately, the champion of the champions of the human right, the land of Nelson Mandela, Ahmed Kathrada, Sol Plaatje, and Oliver Tambo, I have to be putting my head down in and be very ashamed by saying the South Africa, because of the Indian lobby, and equally to blame the Indian National Congress, our Muslim politician, the Muslims, those who serve in the ANC, have blocked any position from the ANC to become a chartered into the resolution or anything. Nobody else to be blamed but our own politicians. I do not have a liberty to go and give the name, but I'm sure you know who I'm talking about it. The South Africa have a policy on Myanmar, foreign policy on Palestine, on Sri Lanka, everybody else, but they have not adopted any position on Kashmir. Now, that is very sad. When you look at it, the South African foreign policy, that is like in the last 26 or 27 years, it went into the 4 phases. Nelson Mandela foreign policy was principle based, very, very principle based on advancing the democratic processes, advancing the human right through the economic integration, and also the African Renaissance. After him, Thabo Mbeki took it over. His focus turned from the principle based to the more of Africa integration and Africa continent and Africa Renaissance. When it's come to President Zuma, that's where the tragedy really unfolded. It wasn't making through the Tawmeki time when the Pahad brothers come into the offices, in the high offices in the foreign ministry. One was in the late, may Allah Ta'ala grant him a Jannat Isu Pahad. But that's where our policies get hijacked. And I can show evidence by evidence that how for the last 20 years our South African foreign policy have been hijacked by the Indian lobbyists, and most of the DG, I would say the director generals like Anil Suklal, those are the deployed by the BGP into our parliaments and into the foreign policy making. They have influenced so heavily that is nowhere near that you can find anything about Kashmir, and there was nothing will be. Even there was a condemnation come from the Cyril Ramaphosa when the Pulwama attack happened. They call our freedom fighter a terrorist, which I have objected, and he acknowledged that there was a mistake in his statement. Now coming back, now at the time of the policy when it's come to the Zuma time, our President Zuma, it was no longer the principal base. It was no longer continued to be based on African analysis. It took the U-turn or completely turned. The foreign policy become a new liberal policy, which was underpinned by a political economy. And that is the saddest part. The might is right. The biggest economy will serve my purpose. I will keep my eyes closed. And then I look at the United Nations, the South African behavior, of South African voting behavior for the last 20 years, more so from the time of a President Zuma, that how they have humiliated and how they have betrayed international human rights legitimate causes, like what happened in Myanmar. Our foreign minister didn't vote. We did not vote. We have absentia. When it's come to calling the Hafiz Saeed a terrorist, South Africa voted in favor of him to be called. So there are many incidents where the collusion happened between India and South Africa. And I'll give one example before you ask me. Your next question is at the time of the Hafiz Saeed, when he was asked, when his name was put in the United Nations to be called a terrorist, his organization need to be called terrorist. South Africa was asked by the India that we will support your seat. We will support your name nomination in the United Nations to become the president of a United Nations Security Council as long as you do not raise the issue of Kashmir in United Nations and you do not support or you do not raise the issue of Kashmir, one, and secondly, you vote in favor of us. Whatever we vote, you vote along with us. There are many other incidents that I have archived in my book, which I can go into detail one by one, but I like to leave it in your hand for the next question.
Yes, Yousha, Salman speaks about the power of the Indian lobby in South Africa and the influence that they have. And we see it right across the entire world. We see the Zionist lobby in the United States of America. We look at organizations like APEC as well. But also, when you look at the hypocrisy surrounding these lobby groups, we know that the matter even went to court with regard to the DA and the whole Putin saga and the anti-Putin lobby, the anti-Russian lobby in the build-up to the BRICS summit. And once again, when one looks at the Indian lobby and how the Indian lobby has actually influenced the South African government, the spheres of influence, to the extent that it's not only about the BRICS summit. We've seen it in more ways than one in terms of how these lobby groups work. Even a sport like cricket, with the whole IPL saga that played out in the IPL franchises in South Africa. It just tells us how powerful these lobby groups are. And we can just sit back and do absolutely nothing.
Well, that's exactly what they are. They lobby groups and they promote a particular agenda, and that agenda detracts from basic rights. So it's just like I say to you. I mean, I expressed the frustration earlier. That the principle of justice is just compromised for the sake of whatever it is that they want to achieve, and it's a sad reality. But yeah, it's an extremely sad reality. I mean, I reading earlier today, and having known it for a while, but I mean, the religion of Islam is just so just, is exact justice, even if it be upon your own self. It's just, I mean, how much more remarkable can you get? Yeah, but be that as may, these lobby groups obviously have agendas. Everybody's got some sort of interest. And it appears to me that the interest of Muslims is not on anybody's agenda, unfortunately.
Well, definitely. Salman, to bring you back into the discussion, and let's just continue with your book and looking at other matters. I know we obviously talking about South Africa, but also looking at the rest of the world that is not paying attention on Kashmir. And I think many people look on South Africa. If you look at the Palestinians, I've spoken to many Palestinians over the years in my involvement in media, and every time they look at South Africa as a role model in their fight against injustice in Palestine, they look at South Africa because South Africa was an apartheid state. Okay, and this is the hope that learning from South Africa, their plight will come to an end. Their position will be better. They will enjoy freedom. Are there expectations coming out of Kashmir, from a country like South Africa to support their cause?
I think that is a very, very important question that you ask, and 100% your preamble. The question is to the point. The people see South Africa is beacon of light. They think the champion, land of the human right champion. That is the country. Every single person who has been oppressed currently, whether it's Myanmar, whether is Sri Lanka, whether is you know Kashmir, Palestine. Everybody think that South Africa have a magic stick or South Africa have a responsibility. I mean, I would call if any one of the South African from the ANC, any responsible person listening or any official of the government listening, you have brought many, many ministries since
Yes.
2000.
Salman, can I just stop you there for a minute? Sorry, can I
Yes.
just stop you there for a minute? I think Yousha has to leave. So we just want to bid Yousha well, and we want to thank you as well, Yousha. Jazakallah khairan so much for taking time out and being with us for the first hour of the show. And
Inayet,
inshallah, looking
I
forward
was
to
told
future engagement.
Sorry about that. I was told it was 7 to 8 p.m. and I made another commitment, which requires me to travel. So if I'm going to leave the house, I'm going to lose network. So I don't want to disturb the show. But Jazakallah for the time. I think there's a hell of a lot more we need to talk about, but maybe we need a decent meal and coffee, which you've been promising me for a while, together, and then we can make a list of topics, inshallah. Jazakallah Salman, Jazakallah Inayet. Assalamu alaikum wa
Ameen.
rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Fi amanillah.
Wa
Thanks
alaikum
for the
salam wa rahmatullahi
solidarity.
wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khairan to Yousha Tayub. Yes, Salman, sorry, Maf, let's carry on.
So yeah, I was talking about since 1994, every new government come, they have introduced the new ministry. If not, then there is a new holiday: ministry for the women, ministry for the disabled, ministry for you name it. I mean, there are many ministries has emerged, and many holidays have emerged. The youth holiday and so. But the most important thing is in South Africa, in political dispensation, the Luthuli House should look at it. How do we arrive here? We fight a liberation war. We fight a human right war against a very strong, a powerful.
Yes, I'm not too sure whether Salman is in a load shedding mode. It does appear as if we've just seen the lights obviously dip in the background. So I'm not too sure whether he's now gone into load shedding mode. So hopefully we will try and get him. What we will do is go for a quick break and try and get hold of Salman. Hopefully. On a better line, because I see his picture had frozen, so possibly he may have lost connection. So with that, we're going to go for a quick break. We'll be back.
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media.
Spread warmth this winter with Africa Muslims Agency's Winter Warmth Campaign. Sayyidina Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu would advise his companions, winter, which is an enemy, has come, so prepare for it with wool, leather socks and socks. Let us help the thousands of South Africans without adequate clothing or shelter to prepare for the harsh winter months by providing them with blankets for 150 Rand and winter warmth packs for 300 Rand. Spread warmth with Africa Muslims Agency. Call AMA on 011-834-8685 or donate online at africamuslimsagency.co.za. Africa Muslims Agency. Empowering, educating, inspiring.
There's no smell that takes me back to the comfort of my childhood than the smell of black seed oil being applied by my nanny. Now I'm using Tib black seed in my own home to soothe sniffles and coughs, to help with digestion and immunity, and of course, as part of my beauty routine. After all these years, I've come to appreciate the wisdom in finding comfort and shifa in trusted treatments like Tib black seed. You can find Tib black seed at all leading pharmacies or find out more at blackseed.co.za.
You know, it's a wonder how kids get anything done these days. With all the distractions, when do they even get time to study? As a mother, all I can really do is make sure they have all they need to perform at their best. That's why I choose to include Sunfoil triple refined pure sunflower oil with every meal I make. Naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether I'm cooking, frying, or baking, I know every dish will be a wholesome one. Sunfoil, now we're cooking.
Conveniently located along the banks of the Crocodile River bordering the Kruger National Park, as a guest at Buckler's Africa Lodge, one can enjoy an amazing sunrise or sunset on our spacious deck area while you catch a glimpse of some wildlife sightings along the Crocodile River. The sounds of the African savannah will greet you whilst you enjoy your morning coffee. Buckler's Africa Lodge by Tingana Collection. Buckler's Africa Lodge is ideally situated only 6 kilometers from the Crocodile Bridge Gate in the Kruger National Park. Catering for all travelers with variety, we have 4 types of the finest rooms: superior rooms, deluxe suites, and 2-bedroomed family units. Each room is equipped with the finest amenities to make your stay unforgettable. Guests can choose between the self-catering option or book their accommodation with breakfast and dinner included. Buckler's Africa Lodge is your ideal location for the ultimate Kruger getaway experience. We specialize in exhilarating and educational game drives in Kruger, tailor-made to suit your family. Inquire about our various accommodation offerings and other activities. Visit www.tingana.co.za for more information. Buckler's Africa Lodge by Tingana Collection. Experience the pulse of Africa with us. Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media.
Well, we continue with the broadcast tonight on Wednesday nights with myself, Inayet Wadee, as we unpack the book by Salman Khan, Nelson Mandela on Kashmir, the Kashmir QUAGMIRE, South Africa's foreign policy position. And early on, we also had Yousha Tayub with us. I see Salman back with us. Salman, assalamu alaikum once again.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sorry, we were caught by load shedding and is disconnected, and I'm back again.
Well, I thought so. In fact, I actually seen your light dip in the background, so I had a feeling that you got caught by load shedding. But I'm glad that you are back. Salman, let's just talk a bit more about your book in terms of the information that is contained in the book, and who is this book aimed at? The type of reader. You know, what are some of the key issues that the reader in the book needs to know about, and who is it directed at?
Okay. I was about to finish my sentence, and when we get disconnected, why not? We have so many ministries and so many holidays, but there is no ministry which deal with the international human right issue. There should be, because as you asked earlier, is the people have expectation internationally? And if this people of Kashmir have expectation from South Africa, yes, they do. They look at it as a tall tower of Nelson Mandela and the freedom fighter. So everybody thinks that if South Africa can get their freedom by fighting a human right, the fight, why not they can help us, and why not? So South Africa should look into that. The think tanks and the South Africa, especially the Tuli House, should look into to form a ministry or introduce a new ministry which look at the international conflict and the fault lines where they can lend hand, because they got expertise, and they is still very fresh from the war of liberation. Maybe that could be a ministry can lend hand into many conflict-driven or the war-torn zone that they can go and help. Now, you asked me about the audience and what is covered in a book. This book is more about the other side of the story, Indian story. When I was doing research, if you look and you try to research any topic on Kashmir, there is 185,000 search results will come. Out of that, 98% are Indian narratives. And of course, the false narrative, the propaganda narrative about Kashmir. So to tell this story, I'm not saying that my story is the story that must believe, but at least they should have another angle. They shouldn't just read the Indian narrative, or they shouldn't be listening to the people, the Indian National Congress, the story that has been told to the Latuli House, to this National African National Congress, to the government. But this book is something which is a scholarly work. It is a hard research work over 27 years. It's been packed with the evidence, because you cannot write a dissertation without providing a solid evidence archives. So in the book, if you really want to get a refreshing and the new understanding of the Kashmir issue from a very unbiased perspective and South African perspective, I would say more, then you need to read the book and make your own mind up about the Kashmir, what you have been told by the people in society for the last how many years in South Africa, and what is the truth behind it. And then do your own investigation, and you will arrive to a informed decision that whether you should be taking the Kashmir issue as a serious human rights issue, or you still need to understand, or still need to accept Indian narrative or false narrative that is a Pakistani propaganda and the Kashmiris are the terrorists. So one need to read and do their own reflection on the from the book.
Yes. Now, Salman, I know we've got about 15 minutes or so, and I just want to spend a bit of time on this whole issue surrounding Modi. Now, I know you were very vocal. The South African Kashmiri Action Group was very, very vocal during the time of his visit to South Africa. And we've seen Narendra Modi, and I think many people actually noticed when he came here. His body language obviously said something else. He wasn't really comfortable in South Africa, because this whole issue surrounding arrest warrant, it was at the back of his mind. It must have been working on him. We've seen the protest action that had taken place as well during the time of the BRICS summit, and also just generally looking at how he was protected. The media wasn't allowed to come close to him within, I don't know, about 300 meters or whatever it is. There was very little by way of press conferences. He was basically surrounded by only a handful of people that came to honor and to greet him.
Yes, I think that is a very important aspect that has not been told by the media, mainstream media, but the people. I think South Africans are very, I would say, politically enlightened people. They read the India. If you look at the last 5 or 6 years since he came into power, that he is a rock star wherever he go. Like when he went to America, it was almost 55,000 people was filled in one of the stadium. When he went to Wembley Stadium in England, it was 65,000 people. When he went to Australia, it was also 50,000 people. In South Africa is got one of the largest diaspora community, 3.6 million Indians living here, and with the expect that we have maybe 4 million, but he did not engage in any public engagement. He did not go, as normally he's very media savvy, he goes sit and talk about anything. He said, bring me any journalist, I'll answer. He was kept in the ring. He was ring faced. You're 100% correct. 300 meters that no media or nobody can come close to him, apart from only during the BRICS section where there was an open question answer session, and he was asked one question and what was on Manipura, and he feel very, very uncomfortable. So he was definitely has a very humiliating. Original plan was to be here in South Africa for 10 days to visit Cape Town, Durban, Pietermaritzburg, and many other places, and fill the Wonders Stadium. But because of the power of Muslim Lawyer Association, people like you and few other people, we managed to bring him his his own ego to the ruins, and he didn't actually stay very comfortable in South Africa. I think that he totally spent 72 hours. He arrived, he missed the inaugurational dinner at the Gallagher Estate, where all the 40 out of the 42 president, all the 41 was present apart from Modi. He arrived, I think, on the 2:30 in the morning of the, I think it was on the 22nd, and on the 24th night, midnight past, in the darkness of the night, he was whisked away because there was some sort of information that the Yousha Tayub and the Muslim Liar Association, Salman Khan, going to the High Court, bringing maybe an interdict, urgent interdict to get him arrested, same like Umar al-Bashir, and middle of the night he was whisked away. So never underestimate the power of a mujahid. The people, a small band of the people, those who think that fighting for the human right has been taught by our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He was the best of the champion of a human right. So a small band of the people, 4 or 5 people, went after him to just bring him his might, that he thought that he will be coming to South Africa and President Cyril Ramaphosa will be going and receiving him. He was humiliated. He didn't want to come out from the plane because he thought if the Chinese Prime Minister can be received by Cyril Ramaphosa, then why not he is also receiving him? He refused to come out from the plane. Then, of course, the Paul Mashitila was asked in from the urgent, a visit to bring him into the airport, waterproof airport. And then, of course, his total visit was all in hiding, very heavily armed protection units, over 200 delegates was along with him. 90% of them was his protection unit. And then he left with a humiliation. It just sent a very, very strong message. Whether you are a Hindu, whether you are Christian, whoever you are South African, we send a very strong message that your presence on the land of a human rights champion like Nelson Mandela, Ahmed Kathrada, Sol Plaatje, and Oliver Tambo is not accepted. You're not welcome. You may be coming to attend the meeting, but you're not our hero. And the Muslims and Hindus all stood together to make sure that we boo him and he run away within the short period of the 2 days. So it's a victory for the humanity, it's victory for the Muslim people, it's victory for the Kashmiri people.
Yes. Now, early on we were listening to that clip, and Shahid Bolton had to say that if Modi doesn't change, India will have to change Modi. But also at the same time, he spoke about the billions of people right across the entire world and the power that they have. Now we see the power of the Palestinian solidarity groups, not only in South Africa, and we know there's many of them right across the entire world, where to a large extent, they have raised the voices for the people of Palestine, although Israel still continues with these atrocities against the people of Palestine. But these are issues that have been raised over and over again, to the extent that even at some governments, like, for example, the Irish government, that has been very, very vocal as far as Israel is concerned. And this is where we're talking about the BDS movement, boycott, divestment, and sanctions as well. And Shahid Bolton also speaks about the power of money to bring India to its knees. I mean, he speaks about India 20 billion a day in terms of deficit. If the Arabs just stop or prevent the expats from remitting money back to India, they will bring India to a standstill. That is how much India is actually dependent on money coming from all over the world. Now, looking at expanding that concept of BDS in South Africa, Salman, to expand the Kashmiri struggle to the likes of, we know trade unions have been supporting the Palestinian struggle. We even see people like Julius Malema speaking about people of Palestine. Now, looking at like-minded people, humanitarians, activists, what opportunities are there to expand this and to, through your book also, but also through other means, to try and educate, to inform people so that people can embrace the struggle as much as they embrace the Palestinian struggle with so much passion and desire?
Jazakallah, I think I wanted to launch, and we have talked about it. You have already launched the BDS India, and I think this is the time that the Muslim community, and from your auspicious platform of Salam Media, those are the small band of the people, but very committed people. You have already launched the BDS. I think it is when you look at the ANC War of Liberation, there was a 5 pillars, and the most important, of course, the armed resistance, underground movement, boycott, divest, as well as the international solidarity and international mobilization. If you ask any ANC comrade, they will tell you the most important pillars of their struggle was not the armed resistance, wasn't the underground movement, it was international solidarity and also the sanctions. So we take it the same thing for the not only for the people of Kashmir, for every minorities, whether the Sikhs, whether the Hindus, whether the Muslim living in a Junagadh or living in a Manipura or Manwara or UP or anywhere else. We need to stood with the minorities of India. And I think there's a Shaheen was saying directly that the India, if the Modi don't change, the India need to change the Modi. And I can tell you one thing, that if the might of the people, collective forces, whether you are Christian, whether you're Hindu, whether you're Muslim, if we all start in a one way or another way, start boycotting India on a 3 level. One, politically, economically, and socially, and morally, you will see the dent will happen. And I think with the big, you can't, sometimes there is a strategy. You cannot explode, but you can implode. The implosion will come when the academia, when the conscious driven people of India, the intellectual, the people who are pure Hindus, who are pacifists, those who start understanding the damage that has been done from the Modi, the BJP government driven by the Modi, how much the damage has been done to the name of the India is no longer a pacifist or a pluralistic and a secular state. During the time of Modi, it has changed into fascist, extremist, and Hindu Dharma, a country where the minorities has been persecuted, the minorities has been dismantled, the minorities has been subjugated to the humiliation. And I think, if I'm not saying that I wish the Modi should continue to be in power, but the longer the Modi will continue to be in power, the India disintegration is very imminent in few years to come. If not few years, let's say next 10 years. And will we start from, because the draining the very fiscal policy, the fiscal powers of India, the might of the India, the economy of India, the I would say the draining their fiscal power into the black hole of a Kashmir, where they're pouring months and after months billion of the US dollar to protect and attack the Muslims in Kashmir. And that is exactly the copycat example of what happened to Russia. When the Russia get bigger and has got into the head that they are the superpower, like the India Modi thinking that now he land onto the moon, he's the superpower of the Southeast Asia, and he walk all over the Pakistan and Azad Kashmir. That's exactly what happened. Historically, if you look at the 1978, when the Russia thought they are big enough to go and take over the Afghanistan, from Afghanistan to the Pakistan border and to the hot seas, what happened? They get stuck into that black hole. 10 years after, they were disintegrated. Now the Red Empire is nowhere to find, and there is only, we call it now, the Moscow. If India, under the Modi regime, the fascist regime, continue to be in power for the next 10 years, India disintegration will happen. And Muslims across the world, the Christian, Muslims, and humanity across the world need to play the part. We do not hate. I do not personally hate Inayet Wadee or Yousha. We do not hate India, or neither we hate Indians, but we hate and we object that India cannot continue. The Indian Modi-led government of the India cannot continue to persecute and criminalize and penalize the Muslims and the Christians the way they're doing at the moment, not only in Kashmir, across the India. And that need to stop. The Indian progression, or Indian, I would say, the growth must continue. We wish them good luck, but it should not be at the cost of a Muslim blood. It cannot be at the cost of a minorities or a Hindus or a Sikh. India within their intellectual circles, they need to come out with some sort of a strategies. They need to send a very strong message to the Modi, to the New Delhi, to say enough is enough. India is belong to the people that live in India, belong to the minorities, belong to the Muslims, and India have a very big fabric of a Muslims businesses, and India cannot ignore that. The power of a Muslims, those who've been living there for 700 years, those are the golden era. They cannot ignore the role that Muslims has played in building of the India. And I think that is my message through my book. And I think you have already launched the Muslims. I would request all the Muslims, brother and sister, that before you touch any product, have a look at it, where it has been built, where it has been made. If it is a chawal, if it is any rice or any product that's coming from India, refuse to buy. And that is a very strong message. Pick up a phone, pick up a pen, pick up an email, do the Twitter, write it down and send the message through the social media to the Indian government. Say, we, not in my name, we are very much Indian, but what is happening in India, it cannot continue.
Yes, Salman, I think what you're saying, obviously, with the ongoing genocide and the genocidal ambitions, and Sheikh also speaks about this catastrophic organ failure that obviously India will suffer ultimately if they carry on this path of genocide. I think we've got about 2 or 3 minutes. Just as far as your book is concerned, availability, where is this book available?
Well, the book is available, a digital version on bazaaronline.co.za, and you can apply the code, which is called all capital letter Kashmir 786, Kashmir book 786. The website address is Bazaar Online, BAZAAR online.co.za, and you can search for the ebook. You can get it, the digital version, and if you want to buy the hard copy, you pay for the delivery, and also it is available on the Kindle, Amazon Kindle as well.
Well, Jazakallah khairan so much for that, Salman. And I must say, it's been an absolute pleasure hosting you once again this evening. And we need to congratulate you. We need to say Mubarak to you on your achievement in terms of writing this book as well. And, we wish you well. Inshallah, we trust and hope that this book will go a long way to achieve whatever you set out to achieve 27 years ago, seeking for the freedom of Kashmir, their right to self-determination, their right to govern themselves, and also at the same time looking at all the atrocities that have been committed by India, by this Hindutva Zionist, family, I would call them, or twins, the same that they're doing to people in Palestine. We trust and hope that at the end of the day, that all of this will come into fruition and we see freedom and justice meted out, to these people, so that they can enjoy living as, their forefathers have lived for many, many years prior to the 76 years of occupation of that beautiful Kashmir Valley. But for now, Jazakallah khairan so much for your time. We wish you well, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I just like to say thank you. Thank you on the behalf of 14 million oppressed, my brother and sister from Kashmir. Thank you for the inspiration. Thank you for providing us the land. Thank you for being a part of my liberation, our liberation, because when the news of a Modi warrant of arrest or Modi war crime case went there, every single mother was in tears. Every person feel energized. People think they have been loved. People think that there is a home after the home in South Africa. So thanks for the inspiration. Thanks for providing the platform. And may Allah Ta'ala reward you all. May Allah Ta'ala use you to liberate the beautiful land of Kashmir and Palestine. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Salman Khan with us. And early on, we had Yousha Tayub discussing his book, Unpacking the Book, Nelson Mandela on Kashmir, the Kashmir QUAGMIRE, South Africa's foreign policy position. And there was just so much that we had basically unpacked. And with that, I'm going to be signing off from myself and the team. Yeah, it's Salam Media. We wish you well. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.